Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here without Ashley.
Again.
Easiest way to say it.
Yeah, without Ashley is going to just be how I report it. So other people are here. One of them is not Ashley. So let's get into it. Okay, it's Kyle Trampus and Joe. I'm not going to be there.
There we go.
There we go.
Nice.
Now they
All
know.
right. Now they know. Unless you're on YouTube, you knew right away.
On today's lineup,
And if you didn't know, we're on YouTube. We've been on YouTube. You should go check out our YouTube. If you're listening to this or watching it on YouTube, thank you.
it is Garage Gym Athlete on YouTube.
Yeah, it's not Into3 Fitness anymore. We
Mhm.
changed the name to Garage Gym Athlete on YouTube.
Big update.
Yeah, well, it'd be more of an update on that. There's basically a divorce going on, but it's like one of those good divorces, you know, like both
Two
parties
businesses.
are happy about it. Kyle's like, I take some issue with that.
Let's move on from that one.
And I thought we were going to get into something controversial today.
Speaking of controversial topics.
Okay.
Ta-da.
All right. So we are talking COVID today. The study, what is the study called? Physical activity and the risk of SARS-CoV-2 infection, severe COVID-19 illness, and COVID-19 related mortality in South Korea, a nationwide cohort study. I think it was published originally July 2021. So very recent. And here's a big reason I wanted to cover this study. I want to get into kind of the why, because I think a lot of people listening to this is going to be preaching to the choir a little bit, because it's more like, hey, we think you should be healthy. It'll probably help with COVID. And now there's a study to prove it. Spoiler alert. And we'll get into all the details, but I don't know if anyone is really like, oh, is being physically active helpful in my ability to get sick? Like, I think we all know those things, but what actually alarms me, this was posted on the Delaware Division of Public Health Facebook page, and it's been shared around. It's legitimate. They posted this, and they said you would have to run 5 miles a day for a week to lose just 1 pound of fat. Getting vaccinated sounds a lot easier. Protect yourself and those you love from the Delta variant. Get vaccinated. So I'm not taking any issue with getting a vaccine, not getting a vaccine, or whatever. I'm not even going down that road. I'm just saying the mindset of let's get vaccinated because fitness is hard, I take issue with, right? Like, that's not the reason that you should be doing it. And so it's this mindset that scares me a little bit. And I know that's where we're at. You know, it's like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, there's an easy button. So again, nothing to do with being pro or anti-vaccine. It just has to do with the mindset of thinking, you know, you don't need fitness. You can just go do something else. Now, I do want to point out that they got a lot of negative comments after posting that, and they did redact that post and changed it and apologized. So that's great. And the reason I still called them out, even though that happened, is because, like, going back to what I said, the original flawed logic, like somebody wrote that and either thought it was funny or they thought it was like legit. And I'm hoping they just thought it was funny, but Delaware Division of Public Health, probably not known for its comical Facebook posts, right? And so I'm thinking it may just be the logic of let's skip fitness and try something else. And so that's a big reason I see things like that, and I wanted to dive into this. So this is the first large-scale population-based nationwide study that investigated the relationship of physical activity with the infectivity and severity of COVID-19 and its related death. 100,000 people in South Korea. there were 8 different cohorts, and they adjusted for all sorts of stuff. Like, we can't even get into every single thing that they did. There were all these different cohorts, all these things that they adjusted for, like whether or not you know, what your cholesterol was, you know, whether or not you were a smoker, whether or not how much alcohol you drink, like all these things they adjusted for. They had different cohorts, and they reported all those things. And if you really want to dive into it, I highly recommend checking out the study. You can go to the show notes and check it out. We always link to the study in the show notes if you really want to dive into it. And this one's 100% free study, meaning you can get the entire thing and read through it all for free. But what was most interesting about this study to me was the fact that the most interesting part here was the fact that it looked at your ability to contract the infection, which I thought was very, very interesting, because it was really looking at 3 things. It was looking at if, you know, whether or not you would contract, like what if you have a reduction in the ability to contract COVID was the first thing. The second thing was the severity, like how bad COVID is. And then the third thing was death. So those are the main things that they were looking at. And overall, I'll jump to their conclusion, and then we can dive into some of the percentages, how much activity, all these things. We can jump into those. But ultimately, the takeaway or the conclusion was adults who engage in the recommended levels of physical activity were associated with a decreased likelihood of SARS-CoV-2 infection, severe COVID-19 illness, and COVID-19 related death. Our findings suggest that engaging in physical activity has substantial public health value and demonstrates potential benefits to combat COVID-19. This is a gigantic study, 100,000 people. They started with some, I think it was in the 200,000 range, even close to 300,000. They had to exclude a bunch of people. It was just massive. And I will say the only limitation to studies like this is it's a lot of self-reporting, but so are a lot of the nutrition studies that we read. And so the fact that they came to these conclusions with self-reporting is still pretty phenomenal to me, pretty crazy stuff. But let's dive into some of the nuances or details of the study. Gentlemen, what did you think?
I'll try and leave some of the juicy bits for the other guys, but yeah, this was huge. I like that they examined those that had COVID, and then they looked at their medical history over the past several years and the assessment that they went through from their past medical. So it's not like they sent people questionnaires and asked, hey, between the years of this and this, asking all these questions, and that's the result they got back. This was like normal checkups years in advance that weren't even known they were going to be used for this,
from 2015 cool. until 2020. Yeah,
right. Yeah, so a ton of data that wasn't even influenced by COVID at all, just normal health assessments. And while that can be good and bad, because you get people just saying it's to their own answers, and then like the parameters are a bit loose of what's strength training, what's aerobic training. Some people will just like, yeah, I do that twice a week. Some people might embellish what they say for like reporting to their work, because sometimes the work checks in on their medical profile, said, yeah, I'm healthier than you think I am. But the amount of people and the data that it showed, like that might be the case for a couple of hundred. You might see a little bit of a fabrication of the results, but for talking about 7,500,000 people, it's overwhelming what it all showed, which is pretty awesome. So the other thing, so when you were talking about some of the contracting, the severity, and then the deaths, another one that they did, so they pulled all kinds of data, was that it also showed if you were admitted into the hospital for COVID, that on average, people who were active were in the hospital 2 days less. So 2 days less. And like every day that you're in the hospital for something increases the chances of either it getting worse, but 2 days less, taking that off the bat is pretty huge in general. And that's always one of the biggest causes for lockdowns anyways, because they need a hospital space. So that was a huge one that I picked up on. I had to kind of dive a little bit. And that's the main parts that I wanted to get out there before we started going into everything else. Demographics, it was also mostly young people. So under 60 was most, it wasn't looking at older people as well. So kind of a prime age group to study for health and stuff. So 33% 20 to 39, 37.8 40 to 59, and then only 28% was over 60, and 52% were female of this whole giant group. But what do you guys got, Trampus?
Yeah, like you were talking about, just the way they went back into the past of these people and just gathered all this information for whatever it was, 70,000 people, or it was kind of incredible to me how organized it all was. Like Jerred said, though, it's a lot of self-reporting, but you got to imagine some of those people are telling the truth. So
yeah, I think I tend to trust self-reporting a little bit longer because of the length of the data set going back from 2015 to now. If they were like, yeah, just over the last 3 months, we're trying to do a COVID study, like, tell us something, I'd be like, well, I don't know. It seems kind of odd, but that just how many repetitions you have from regular physical checkups and stuff, like, it just seems a bit crazy.
Right. And then, with the results, yeah, I mean, like you kind of said also, it's no surprise that healthier individuals handled the virus better, but the difference between no activity, some activity, the right amount of activity, and then like vigorous activity, is just that bell curve that you talk about all the time. And just it was just stark. And if you looked at the results, it's exactly what you talk about. There was let's see, and then if you were going to do one and not the other, it was probably better to do aerobic. Seems like having your cardiovascular and aerobic system a little bit stronger would be better, but by far and away, just full-on concurrent training.
There it is.
There we go.
But which one is better, Trampus?
The best one.
Better. Yeah.
I think we were playing chicken to say who was going to say it first.
Yeah.
Definitely going to say it. If
they
it hadn't
didn't
been
use
said
the words concurrent training in the study, but that's all I read the whole time.
But basically, I mean, it was kind of cool to see, though. I mean, there's that one graph that had the 3, and it was just plain as day that people who can train both systems, or all the systems, have a better chance of beating this thing, or like Joe said, spending less time in the hospital. Cool study, just a lot of information, and obviously points to things that we're passionate about. Kyle, what did you have?
Yeah, just another study confirming, everything that we talk about, all the things. I'm glad that somebody said concurrent training. I was definitely going to. If it's referred to as aerobic and strength exercise in the study, but it's like, yeah, I know what that is. We know what you're really trying to say here. So the groups, the active versus the insufficient versus sufficiently active groups, those groups were based off of the 2018 American guidelines for recommended exercise. And those guidelines recommend between 150 and 300 minutes per week of training to be healthy. And so 150 minutes is the bottom end of that. 150 minutes is 2.5 hours, which you break that up over 5 days. That's 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes of exercise a day is the bottom end of the baseline for the active group. The active group saw a 22% lower risk of infection, a 38% lower risk of severe illness with COVID-19, and an 83% lower risk of death from COVID-19. That's the active group. That's the people who are getting the minimum amount according to. So basically the people who are doing 30 minutes a day at the minimum, 30 minutes a day, are 22% less likely to even be infected, 38% less likely to have a severe reaction, 83% less likely to die from COVID-19, according to this study. So to me, I mean, what else do you need to know? You know what I mean? What else do you need to know? Do something. Get out there and do something. Get to moving. Not just, and that's something else that they had a whole section of like potential limitations to their study. And one of the things that they highlighted was this is only reporting like training. So what we refer to as training, which is like intentional movement that's outside of your daily physical activity. So if you have a physically strenuous job, that physical activity doesn't get reported. This is, what are you doing outside of your normal daily everyday activity? And so this is like specifically training. So
Yeah, they
it's
wrote
not,
that as a limitation to the study,
yeah,
and I thought it was more of like a beneficial part to the study, because
yeah,
they straight up said they excluded people with like very light activity, yeah, or active jobs. And so it's like
mhm,
we're not counting the people who, like a mailman who walks a lot. The reason I
yeah,
say that is because we've actually had someone in our programming like that. Like
mhm,
that's very active, but it's not the same as a mailman
right,
who walks a lot who also does garage gym athlete training. You know, that's quite a bit different.
right. Well, and I kind of saw the limitation part of it, because if you have somebody who has a physically strenuous job, maybe they're not coming home and training. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
because they feel like they get enough physical activity just doing their job, so they're not going to come home and train. And so but I agree with you. I like that they kind of excluded that, because like if you're not intentionally moving, intentionally training outside of your everyday physical activity, then that doesn't count. And so so yeah, I agree with you. I liked that. But um like I said, I don't know what else, what other evidence do you need, and this is what we've always known, you know what I mean? It's not just COVID-19 that this protects against. It protects against everything. That this study specifically goes into the immune response, how much physical activity, just a little bit, a little bit of intentional movement every day can just build your immune system, and your immune system protects against everything, all diseases, you know what I mean? All sicknesses. It helps you recover better. It makes sickness less severe for you. It reduces your risk of dying from everything. And so I thought, um, I, I thought this was a really, really good study. Whole bunch of people over a long period of time. I think, I agree. I understand why they put in those potential limitations in their study. I think they needed to do that. But that's what studies typically do. They'll just list potential things, since they're publishing these in the scientific community. But I think when you have a cohort that's that big and it's studied over that period of time, I think that kind of erases a lot of those things and kind of takes away the potential issues for it.
Yeah, I think limitations are almost like calling yourself out. I think
Mm,
people should probably do that when they post things on like social media too.
yeah,
It's like post this and then try and immediately like, how are you going to plan to attack this since you're
yeah,
an expert? Um, yeah, so I think there were a lot of limitations that they put down, and you could dive into those. One of those being they didn't really take into account the nutrition side of
right,
this, and so that could be a huge factor, and that's something we're not going to know in any great detail from this study. Is like, if someone's getting, let's say, 300 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise training, whatever you want to call it, per week, my guess is that they also have a pretty decent diet.
mm-hmm,
I don't run into many people who are putting in that much work and then have just an absolutely crappy diet. I mean, they do exist. We know of some, right?
mm-hmm.
Uh, but the for the most part, people are going to clean up their diet. It's probably not 100%. So, how much does nutrition play into this? Probably to some degree, right? Especially because they listed, what are the possible explanations of the results, and they listed a bunch of them. It was like immunosurveillance, meaning your body could just pay attention more to like things that are in it and can like identify an invader and destroy it. And but the second one they listed was reduced systemic inflammation, and promoted by recirculation of immune cells, all this anti-inflammatory stuff. But we know the diet can help with that a lot too, as well as exercise. And so they put in like why they thought that the immune system of people who exercise more regularly might have a leg up on everyone. So yeah, I think that's important. That 150 minute minimum seems to be the great thing for everyone to shoot for. If you're following our training, you're definitely getting that in. But the most interesting part to me that I really hadn't really heard is just the reduced likelihood of being infected in the first place. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the most interesting part to me, because if you would have told me, yeah, like if you get it, and you're you know really healthy, yeah, maybe it won't be so severe. Maybe you won't end up in the hospital. But the fact that you might not even get it in the first place, you have a reduction 25% or 30% or whatever it is. That's just pretty crazy to me. That means your immune system's like on another level. So, and anyway, really cool study. I don't have a lot more takeaways than what you all have mentioned. But let's get into just the killing comfort of this. How can the listeners kill comfort with this information, this study? What do you think?
I think.
First. Or Travis. Travis, you're already gone.
Yeah, I think we get dependent on someone telling us how to be healthy, or what we need to do to stay healthy, and I think a lot of people need that. And then if you're not taking care of yourself, though, I mean, you're not doing everything you can. And like Jerred said at the beginning of this isn't about whether to get a vaccine or not. If getting a vaccine makes you feel safer and more comfortable, and that's probably a great mental side effect of getting a vaccine, because it's not hanging over you all day. But if you're not taking care of yourself too, then you're literally not doing everything you can do. So your killing comfort probably should be to just look at every bit of your life and see, how can I be healthy on my own terms, instead of worrying about somebody taking care of you down the road.
And pandemics probably aren't done. I mean, probably
Right.
in our lifetime, at least. In the next one, I don't know, they did this miracle vaccine in like less than a year or whatever it took. Like, pretty incredible, just the science behind it and everything that actually took place to create a vaccine in such a short amount of time. But that doesn't mean, let's just say another pandemic does come, or maybe this thing mutates so aggressively that the vaccine is ineffective. I have no data supporting that statement. I'm just saying, if these things happen, your only line of defense is going to be your immune system. Yeah, we can do social distancing, masks, and all these other things. Assuming that stuff's in place, like, your immune system is what keeps you from getting sick. And so I completely agree with you, Trampus. Like, you got to do what you can. You can't, going all the way back to you can't just assume there's some sort of easy button that you can hit and everything's going to be good, because even if you want to consider the vaccine the easy button for not, for the future of COVID, doesn't really matter, because there are a lot of other things that could happen in the future. So I think taking care of your immune system is insanely important.
Well, you run into infection rates anyway with vaccines. You know what I mean? And I'm not even going to talk about COVID, like flu shot. I know many people who would get a flu shot every year, and then they would still get the flu. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and so, like, you can, like, vaccines help boost your immune system to help you with the virus. They don't necessarily just 100% protect you from getting sick. But the biggest thing that can help you with sickness is the immune system that's programmed into your body. And, like, the human body is a resilient thing as long as it's taken care of. And so mine kind of goes along with that. My killing comfort is just get started. Like, it's common sense. It's pretty plain that physical activity, and as we can see from this study, like, it doesn't take a whole lot of physical activity, but it needs to be intentional, and it needs to be outside of what you normally do every single day. Just get started. Do something intentional every single day, and start taking care of yourself, and building up your own immune system and letting your body take care of itself. And I would say, go a step further. We talk about the grid all the time. That's an easy way to get started. Make yourself a grid in the morning. Make it a 3x3. It's nine blocks. Make it a 3x3, and do a few reps of something and fill in that grid. Do some push-ups, or do some air squats, or something. Do something and fill out that grid every day, and do that for 7 days straight, and kill some comfort and get started. Joe,
I think what might be kind of cool, I don't know if there's one out there. There probably is. There's studies on almost everything. But if there's any study that examines like fitness and like white blood cell count, like breaking it down that narrowly and basically, because that's part of natural defense anyway. But that's just maybe down the road we'll find more on. But my killing comfort might be my most uncomfortable one that I've come up with, and that's just because of the nature of it. So more than likely, everybody listening to this is either doing strength or aerobic work, or both. If it's a lot of athletes, they're doing both. So starting, it might be easy for them or they know. But what about your spouse? What about your siblings? What about your parents? Are they doing either of those things? And with all of the stuff going on now, and maybe, if temperatures get colder, that's usually when infection and all those rates go up. So maybe in a nice way, get somebody else to introduce somebody else to do a strength and aerobic type high or getting elevated heart rate workout maybe once or twice a week to plant that seed, just to show, hey, you got 22% less chance of getting sick, of even catching a sickness versus farther than that. So try and loop somebody else into a little bit of fitness would be my way, because that can be hard for a couple different reasons.
Damn it.
Mm.
Joe took mine.
There we go.
Yeah, good work, Joe. You took mine. So I'll just say it in a different way, the exact same thing though. So yeah, my killing comfort would be to get others involved. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I feel like in introducing the study on this podcast, the Garage Gym Athlete podcast, in which we have programming services, like, yeah, most everyone listening to this, probably good to go. You got your fitness taken care of. You're doing everything that you can. Some people may be listening, maybe that's not true. So yeah, go get started, like Kyle said. But for those of you who have your ducks in a row, go help somebody else. Try and get one or two new people involved in fitness. And I've talked about this on the podcast before. Just don't stop trying. Like I feel like people, whether it's in your family or your friends, they give this half-hearted like thing, but I think that you should get to the level where they become offended and like they are like angry and give you a no. Once you get there, you can back off. But if you're just like, hey, why don't you work out with me sometime? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe. No, I'm not going to. And that's it. That's like you're like, I tried. And like they didn't. That's not trying. That's doing basically nothing. That's mentioning something and they didn't even know if you were actually serious. Start mapping out the plan with them. Like, hey, you want to come train in my garage sometime? And they're like, well, yeah, maybe. Like, how about Tuesday, 2 p.m. next week? And then you're like, now we're getting real. You're starting to hold them to a time frame. Like actually try hard to get people involved and teach them what you know. If you listen to this podcast, you're probably smarter than most other fitness people, if that's a thing out there. And so definitely go get other people involved and, try and get them fitter, because we can, outside any of this COVID crap, like there's a serious problem in the world of obesity, right? That's a bigger pandemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it, than anything else. There will be more people dying of basically obesity related problems than COVID will ever kill anyone. So it's a much bigger issue. So trying to get your friends and family involved is very important. So do your best there. I know for me, it's always been my family. Like I just annoy the shit out of them. And my brother's now working out with me. And it took me, I don't know, 5 or 6 years to finally get him here on a consistent basis, but I didn't give up. Right. And now he's here. He's training with me and hasn't stopped for a few months now. So things are going well. People do give in eventually once they realize it's an important thing that they need to do. But
would you say it's harder to get somebody to work out, not even with you, but get somebody to work out or to clean up their diet?
Diet for sure.
I think it depends,
because everyone has a diet, right? Everyone has it. So like they are very ingrained in what they're already doing. So you have to break a lot of bad habits for someone to get involved with fitness. It's really just introducing this new time frame, right? It's like you need to come at this time, and that's one hard thing. But people's diets can be so crappy, they have to literally break 47 bad habits, introduce 47 new ones. I think mentally it's more taxing to fix a really bad diet as opposed to having someone walk or come to your gym or whatever. I think that's a little bit easier, but that's just my opinion.
It's a lot more common to run into somebody who's emotionally attached to food as
Right.
well versus someone who's emotionally attached to the gym. So
yeah, I guess the difference of introducing something uncomfortable versus taking away something comfortable and pleasurable.
Right.
But it's not impossible.
Not impossible. Nice job.
Good one, Joe.
Wow.
Nice job.
So we're going into the book review.
You set that whole thing up, didn't you? On purpose.
I'm not going to tell you my secrets.
I think he thinks I don't know how to
I'm
transition.
gonna have to take notes.
I actually legit had that question, and then it just came to me halfway through. So,
Okay, so we are doing book review. It's our monthly book review. The book is The Art of Impossible, a peak performance primer by Stephen Kotler. Did I get that right? Okay, so I'm going to read the description of the book from Amazon, and then we can get into our takeaways, what we liked, what we didn't like, and our overall barbell rating on a scale of 1 to 5 fractional plates allowed. All right, so best-selling author and peak performance expert Stephen Kotler decodes the secrets of those elite performers, athletes, artists, scientists, CEOs, and more who have changed our definition of the possible, teaching us how we too can stretch far beyond our capabilities, making impossible dreams much more attainable for all of us. What does it take to accomplish the impossible? What does it take to shatter our limitations, exceed our expectations, and turn our biggest dreams into our most recent achievements? We are capable of so much more than we know. That's the message at the core of The Art of Impossible. Building upon cutting-edge neuroscience and over 20 years of research, best-selling author, peak performance expert, and executive director of the Flow Research Collective, Stephen Kotler lays out a blueprint for extreme performance improvement. If you want to aim high, here's the playbook to make it happen. Inspirational and aspirational, pragmatic and accessible, The Art of Impossible is a life-changing experience disguised as a how-to manual for peak performance that anyone can use to shoot for the stars. Spacesuit not included. So the reason I wanted to read that entire description just to see if we feel like the book lived up to such a great description there, if we feel that way. Let's get into it. So likes, didn't likes, pros, cons. Gentlemen, what do you think about this book, The Art of Impossible?
so I will say, starting off with dislikes was, so a lot of times when you get these books, especially self-help, or not even self-help, but a lot of the nonfiction, is they come at you with like their powerful statements, their success stories, their shiny objects, their everything of like, this is the success, this is great, this is this thing. And you're like jazzed up from the beginning, good to go, ready to run through a wall. And then maybe, 30, 40, 50% through, you might start to slow down and it might start to wane on you. This one was kind of the opposite. The first quarter of this book, I was kind of like meh on, like I wasn't really too into. I didn't really get much from it. But as it went on further and further, I was like, yes, yes, yes. This is, so there's a lot of great stuff as it goes on, and it just gets better and better. A couple of things that I really like. Probably my favorite thing, the one that stuck in my head the most, was the 5 books of stupid. I really, really liked that.
Mhm.
And it's kind of what we say sometimes about when it comes to nutrition. If you want to learn about nutrition, you can't really just read one book about it and be good. You got to read several and get several different angles on it. And the 5 books of stupid really laid out a great way to, if you want to learn about something new, get into something new, and how he broke it down into, okay, the first 2 books should just be completely popular. Read it so that you're still excited about the subject. Don't get too niche. Don't get too bogged down with something too crazy so that you don't get confused or back out. You want to still be excited for those first 2 books. And then the 3rd book, you'll start to narrow your focus. And then the 4th book should start to get even harder. And then the 5th book should challenge you the most about that subject. And I think that is really, really awesome. No matter what you want to get into or learn about, that was one of my favorite parts about it. And it's a really practical way to go about learning to learn something new, instead of just like, well, yeah, I guess this book I saw, I'll just kind of pick this up. I mean, it's still fine to just pick up books, but that was really, I really, really liked. Another thing that I haven't checked out yet, but I really want to, was the Tim Ferriss experiment.
Yeah.
I never even heard of that until recently.
Yeah.
I don't really know too much about Tim
I
Ferriss.
think I only watched one episode when it first came out a long time ago, because it was like only on Apple, I think, or something like that. And so at that time when they did it, and so I think I watched like one and then didn't watch anymore. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. The whole idea behind that was kind of cool. The fact that, like, I guess the Tim Ferriss experiment was, he takes like 72 hours or whatever to learn something new, and learns from an expert, and how he breaks it down to learn something sufficiently enough. He's not like an expert at it, but it just proves the whole point of that in the book was that no matter how old you are, no matter where you are in life, you can still learn and pick up on new things and adapt and grow. And I think a lot of times people get stuck into you get in your life and in your 30s or wherever you are, you're just like, okay, well, this is life now. I have my job, I have my life now. I'm just kind of doing what I want from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of thing. So if you are pursuing something, this shows that it's either never too late, and you can still go about it and learn all these whatever you want, especially if you can focus the right way and go about it in a relatable way. And enhancing flow, there was a lot about enhancing flow. That was kind of the biggest part about it, but this is something that we went over in like college with advertising and marketing. Changing surroundings is a big one that I have done and like to do a lot. I just noticed that, if you leave your office, go somewhere else. If you need to get creative, get some things flowing, then changing surroundings can be great. And then doing something with like a low brain power, very like remedial task, can also help shake thoughts loose and get you to enhance your flow. But Kyle, what you got?
I really enjoyed it. I think it's pretty clear. My favorite book that we've covered on the podcast is The Art of Resilience. And Bria, we covered that a long time ago.
You like art books?
I do. I'm going to mention another one here in just a second.
Have art.
But this one was right up there for me. I really enjoyed it too. I think the narrative part of Art of Resilience kind of puts it above this one, because it's more of a story format. But
why is it a comparison?
Well,
just so you know, I really like this one, but it's
which
not...
art book I like best.
Yeah, I know, right? That's just anyway. I guess I'm just trying to give some context of how much I like it. That's what I was trying to do.
Sorry,
I was trying to give context of how much I like it, because everybody knows I really liked the other one. But it's talking about capital I versus lowercase I impossible, and how peak performers pursue those two different things. So capital I impossible is something that nobody has ever done. So basically like pushing the limits of all humanity, of all human performance and achievement. And little I impossible is something that seems impossible for you. So it's something that other people have done, other people have accomplished, but it's something that in your head, when you think about possibly doing that thing, it doesn't seem attainable for you. And so just kind of using his format to do both, really, to push your personal limits, but also if you're so inclined, to push the limits of all humanity with those capital I impossible. But it kind of reminded me of, here's the other art book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And that book is all about finding the thing. Basically, it's about finding the thing that you are put on earth to do and pursuing that thing with reckless abandon. And so that's kind of a lot of what this guy is talking about as well, of finding what you're passionate about, how to narrow down on that thing that you're passionate about, how to pursue it, a lot of really practical applications of how to do that. And so that's kind of what it reminded me of as well. I really liked, one of the very first things that he shared was his 25 interest exercise, of where you write down 25 things that you're really interested in. And he also drew that the importance of writing it down physically, like pen to paper, instead of like putting it in digital format, because there's something really powerful in the connection between physically writing something versus typing something. But 25 things that you're curious about, be very, very specific as possible about those things, but things that you would be like, if you could take a weekend and really dive into some of the stuff surrounding whatever that one thing is, that you would do that you would take some time out of your weekend to read a book or two, or listen to a lecture, or maybe even talk to somebody who's an expert on that thing, and but be very specific about it. And once you have your list of those 25 things, find the connections amongst those things. So see if there are like 3 or 4 things on your list. There probably will be about 3 or 4 things on your list that are connected, and that's going to help you kind of start to narrow in on the thing that you need to be pursuing, and the thing that you're passionate about, and that will help trigger this flow and this creativity and all those things that he talks about for the rest of the book. So that's kind of the first step, is that 25 things list. And so I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool. The 5 Books of Stupid was really cool as well. Of course, we read all kinds of books all the time. So somebody suggesting, hey, you should go read more books. I like that. I think that's a good suggestion. But also, one last thing, basically, he talked about learn something interesting about what you're interested in every day. So whatever it is that you've narrowed in on that you're interested in, that you want to focus on, learn something interesting about that thing, and it helps continue this flow and this creativity cycle where you just continue to learn more and push forward and start to achieve those things that you're wanting to achieve. Trampus, what you got?
Yeah, like these guys said, great book. Tons of just like actionable activities, like the 5 Books of Stupid, and just these different processes that you can go through to get to the same place. He talked about the intersections of things a lot, and I kept comparing this to like me making merch, because what is fitness and drawing and marketing, and what do all those have to do with each other? And it's finding that spot where, you know, I can sit down and take a fitness topic, put it on an iPad, then figure out how I'm going to let people know that it exists. And you've got to learn all the different places and find that intersection that's perfect. And that's the whole book. I was just comparing it to what I'm trying to do with these businesses and with the merch here. And I just thought it was great. Wanted to also talk about, he talks about the importance of sleep, diet, hydration, and exercise towards the end. Oddly enough, that's part of Jerred's elements that he's put together. You know, all that stuff is important to reach the maximum level of benefit. Getting into flow, I think, Joe, you sort of mentioned doing something mindless. It's not completely mindless when I'm doing it, but, you know, I can listen to an audiobook or something like that while I'm drawing on my iPad, you know, and I kind of know what I'm doing with the drawing, and I'm able to soak up the information. And again, it's just finding that intersection of the two activities and trying to put them together. He talked about how these companies will set up, and I can't remember which example he gave, but these companies will set up their offices so that people like have to run into each other and communicate and talk, and basically how that just spurs on, you know, imagination and create. It was at Apple. Yeah. I knew it was a tech company. I couldn't remember which one, but like Apple set up
One
their
of the
offices.
medium ones.
Yeah, one of the little smaller ones, but they've set up their offices in a way so that people have to go certain paths, and you may like run into somebody that you know, and then just basically it's bringing in what he kept calling confusion or aggravation, I guess is the better word for it. But like, it's when you start getting aggravated, that's when you start to creatively try to get your way out of it. And it basically, it just opens up the pathway. But just so many good actionable tips from it. I mean, it's almost too much to try to explain, because he basically just, he defines this perfect storm for people that do the impossible. And it sounds kind of corny, but like that's what he does throughout the whole book. So great book. A lot of tidbits. You could take one part of it and you could just implement that if you're low at one point, or you could try to take the whole thing and do it across the whole spectrum. So and then the last thing I'll say is, it's not impossible, it's impossible. And that's for a very specific group of people that are going to laugh at me later. But
All right.
Go ahead.
So Stephen Kotler, a phenomenal author, just in general. I don't know if you haven't read any of his other books, I highly recommend them. He's written multiple. Stealing Fire was really good. Really, like, probably one of my top 10s. Like, that was a great book. I think it's The Rise of Superman, another great book. This book, great book. He's an actual author, you know, like he didn't come with some idea. Like, he talks about his process kind of in the 5 Books of Stupid, like how he does research, how he comes up with good questions. And you can just tell How he put the book together is very good. He's a smart dude. He's a good writer. And there's a lot of phenomenal takeaways. I would say the entire book really is about flow and how to get into this, better, more, this peak performance mindset. And just like, that's why I do everything that I do. I like the elements, all these things, like the reason I'm chasing different things with my diet has everything to do with my mental performance and very little to do with my immune system or recovery. Like, all those things are great. All those are like the cherry on top for me. But the reason I've pursued all these different things is because I want to perform at the highest mental level possible.
Mm.
And I feel like he's put a lot of great ideas in this book to be able to do that. And one thing that kept coming up throughout the book was just the importance of actually having goals. He called them, first, there's a massively transformative purpose. He called them MTPs, which is essentially like a goal for your life, mission statement for your life. They're high, hard goals, which are a major step towards your MTP. And then clear goals, which are daily sub steps. So the having goals or intentions are very important. You really can't get around it. Like, you have to, it doesn't mean you have to say, I want a 500-pound back squat. It just means that there's this different way that these elite performers are pursuing things than people who are not at all. And so you have to be pursuing something. And so I think goals are really important. And like I said, that kept coming up throughout the book. And so I think that people should go through some of the exercises. Kyle mentioned that there's like things that you can actually do, but he actually walks you through like coming up with your MTP. I did it, and that's fairly easy for me because I kind of already have these things in my brain, but I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I wrote down my high hard goal. I went through my clear goals. Like, I do a lot of these things already. And he has just given it such a clear framework, so I think diving into these things to get into a better flow state is something that everyone should be interested in. And the easy takeaways were, like Trampus said, follow the elements, sleep, train, but then really focus on this undistracted work. I've actually been a lot worse at this lately, mainly due to my work environment, not being in my new office, kids at home, COVID, 2020 to 2021. I won't say I can be completely distracted work the whole time, but the least focused I've probably been able to be at work. But pre this pandemic and everything that's happened, that is like my life is like, you can't talk to me, you can't text message me, you can't Slack me, you can't email me. I will be working from this time to this time. You'll get in touch with me when I'm ready to like allow that. I haven't been like that lately. And so this is really like reminded me of how important that is. Like, that's how you write a freaking book. Like, that's like, that's what you need. A lot of people want to write a book. I've written 2. I'll write more, and it's gonna be this level of dedication that you have to have. Like, you can't be distracted. You can't be answering emails and all these messages when you have something. And what I loved about it, it's not like he didn't say you need 8 hours of this. He said 90 to 120 minutes. So we're really just talking about, like, I couldn't go my whole day without talking to Joe or Kyle or Ashley or Tramps. Like, we have to communicate about things. But can I dedicate 1 to 2 hours the first block of my morning to like execute something that I really need to do? And then I can communicate. I can be more, social interaction, all that stuff. Yeah, sure. But you need that undistracted work. And so I think that was a big thing that he put in the book. And another book on that one is Deep Work. Do we cover deep work on this? I know I've mentioned it a couple times, but deep work is really good if you're just looking
I don't think so.
on some practical takeaways about how to get into more of that state of mind or that workflow. But one of my favorite things that he put in there was the low energy grit exercise. And this is a very small thing. But he called it a low energy grit exercise. I call it a NFI. I put it in the Killing Comfort Planner, which is over my shoulder. If you're watching the YouTube video, it's called a no fail item is what I call it. I don't know what shoulder to point to. Oh, damn it. There he is. Yeah.
Those are both.
Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, we have very similar mindset here. Is like, what's this one thing that you have that no matter what happens today, it's going to get done. And he was talking specifically about fitness. And I think that it's awesome. And so I think everyone, I took a coaching call while Kyle was out of town, and I challenged them to do it as too, to set a low energy exercise. And so I think that you should do it. That means if you can't get your training session in today, there has to be like a bare minimum that you do. He mentioned some runners, their minimum is like 20 minutes. His minimum was 200 push-ups, something like that. And so I picked a low energy grit exercise for me that is one part of Murph. So one element of Murph, obviously not Murph. So it's either a 1 mile run or 100 pull-ups or 200 push-ups or 300 squats. So there's an or in all of those. That's what I selected as my low energy grit exercise. So if I have a travel day, I'm at the hotel, there's no way a workout's happening. All right, well, your options really at this point are probably going to be 200 push-ups or 300 squats right now. And I just love that level because it doesn't take a lot of energy and it is a complete exercise in grit. You know, that's all it is. Probably not improving your fitness that much. It's 100% just a test of who you are. Can you actually do that every time you come up to the, you know what, I kind of can't make it. I can't do it today. I'm going to still do this minimum. I think that'll really build a lot of character. So anyway, if you're interested in flow, I don't have a lot of negative things to say about the book. I thought the book was awesome. I think he probably could have cut to the chase a few times in the book, but that's probably just because I was so fully bought into the idea from the start that the cliff notes would have been perfect for me. But I get if you're kind of on the fence or new to this stuff, then the book is probably really well written for people trying to learn more. So let's get to our barbell rating. Kyle.
I'm going to give it 4.5 barbells.
4 and a fractional plate.
4 and a fractional plate.
All right. Trampus.
Yeah, I'm right there with Kyle. 4.5.
And Joe.
4.5 as well.
All right. And I'll go 5.
There we go.
Nice.
Five
Bringing the
barbells.
average up.
Yeah. Everyone, it's whatever. Okay. What? Has anyone given a 5 yet?
No.
Everyone thinks their 5s are so damn important. This is just something I've noticed about reviews in general. People are like, nah, I'm not giving you the full 5.
I think that it may have something to do with none of us have written a book, and you actually know what it takes to do that. And so you're giving this a 5 because, wow, he wrote this book and it's great. Where it's us, it's just kind of like it's just a good book.
Well,
it took me a while to get into it. Like
Joe's 4.5, I got a reason. He gave me a reason. It was like, you know what? Yeah, here was the thing that I didn't like that knocked it down a half. Trampus and Kyle, I didn't get any of that. This book was amazing. I loved it. I'm not trying to talk you into a 5, but I didn't hear the lack of a 0.5% mark down. So what is give the listeners that at a minimum, because we need to know, okay, you guys loved it, but there was something that like kind of held you back from giving it your full rating.
I'll give you a reason.
Go ahead.
There was a lot of technical jargon in it, especially when he started talking about the brain, started talking about how the brain works. He started talking about a lot of internal processes with the brain, stuff like that. And not that I'm specifically like intimidated by that or don't like that or those kinds of things, but I'm also kind of thinking of listeners, and some listeners don't read as many books as we do on a regular basis. And so, and he talked about in the 5 books of stupid of like being familiar with terminology. That's kind of one of the main reasons that you read 5 books on that topic, is so you can be familiar with terminology. It's terminology that I'm familiar with, but there was enough of it in there to kind of bog it down maybe for people who don't read on the level that we do. So I knocked it down a 0.5 barbell.
Fair enough.
There you go.
It was a 10-hour audiobook. And I think kind of like you said, it could have been.
That was it.
I was like, all right.
10 hours, man. That's what
like you said, I think it could have been, he could have cut to the chase, but it may be like you said, where we're all sort of bought into this idea anyways. Like what was funny for me is I was reading about flow, and you said that your work environment's not that great. I'm in my dining room right now.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife is only working 3 days a week. So I was listening to him while making a t-shirt, talk about flow. And every 10 minutes she would come over here and talk to me about something. And it just trying to get into a distract. And she won't ever listen to this. I don't think so. If she ever does,
you're in trouble.
Babe, I love you. But when I'm trying
we didn't tell them the rules of podcasting.
Distraction free, it's fine. Distraction-free workplace is it's hard to set yourself up for that.
It has to be communicated, to be honest.
Right.
It can't like.
Yeah.
I'm very clear about that. Emily's great. My kids know about it. You just certain times don't talk to me. because you're not going to like me if you break my concentration. I try to not be mean, but you can tell just from the look on my face, I am now annoyed. And I try really hard to not be that way. Probably one of my biggest flaws, but when I'm like very engrossed in something and you break that level of concentration, I'm like immediately frustrated, and it takes every bit of my willpower to try and pretend like I'm not. But the people who know me best are just like, oh, all right, sorry, whatever. Like, I'll get out of here. So yeah,
It's one word answers and no eye contact.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of one word answers, let's get into the EO3 fit test. Ah, damn
There's
it.
those transitions.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad at the transitions. We need Joe to do all of them. All right, so we are getting in the workout. I'm going to brief it today. EO3 fit test, which is you need one kettlebell and you get to test your level of fitness. The brief on this is almost 6.5 minutes, but I do recommend people watch it because it's one of our most in-depth briefs. Not only do I brief the entire workout, I actually show all the movements in there. So there are two ways to score the EO3 fit test. There's the added up method where you just add up every element as a point. And then there's the spreadsheet method where you can actually see how you stack up percentage wise across a lot of athletes who we did test and where you're at, whether you're established, competitor, recruit. So you start with the 10, not 11 strength test. And that means you are going to take a kettlebell in which you can lift 10 repetitions, not 11. So it's essentially a 10 rep max with a kettlebell. If you don't have the right kettlebell, get a heavier kettlebell. You're breaking some rules. And so get the kettlebell, determine your 10, not 11 strength test number, and then your score is the weight of that kettlebell.
That's a shoulder press also.
Yep, strict press.
The lift is a strict press.
Yeah, and then and you do it with each arm. So it'll also find out if you have an imbalance in your, like I found out when I started doing this test, my left arm is actually stronger than my right in pressing, at least. Like 10 with my left, super easy. I can still do the 10 with my right, but like 9 and 10 are very hard compared to my left, like want some more. Next, 10-second battle test, which is a single arm kettlebell thruster. So you do 10 seconds with the right arm, and then you do a 30-second rest, and then 10-second with the left arm. And the max score is 8 repetitions. So 8 for the right arm, 8 for the left arm. You might also find here that you might have an imbalance and there's something different. So 10 seconds, single arm kettlebell thrusters. You then rest 3 minutes, and then you do max meters in 6 minutes, with the max score being basically a mile, 1,600 meters, 9 meters short of a mile. Then you're going to rest 6 to 12 minutes or until recovered. So this is kind of open-ended recovery here. You want to fully recover. There's no benefit to speeding this up. And so fully recover. And then you're going to do the 3-minute kettlebell snatch test, which is just 3 minutes, max repetitions of kettlebell snatch, where you're alternating every single rep. And the max score is 60 repetitions. And that part right there is the nastiest part of the workout. Quite awful. If you do it right, you might want to throw up. And that's just because we're dipping into the glycolytic pretty hard there. And so that's just the big picture overview of the test. You add up all that, and then you'd have your score, or like I said, you can use our spreadsheet. This test strength. It tests all the different energy systems. Pretty well-rounded test that we use to assess a level of fitness. Like this is how I would probably test people in the military, something like this, as opposed to like what they're doing. I'd want something more similar so we can see like these gaping holes maybe in energy systems that we could then train to. So that's kind of why it was put together, to in a short amount of time discover any giant holes in your fitness as fast as we can. Because like if you crush everything and you get a 3-minute kettlebell snatch test and you do like 7 reps or 15 reps, like okay, well you can't generate a lot of power, your glycolytic system kind of sucks, like we know where you need to work. Or if you can crush everything else but you can't run a lot of meters in 6 minutes, okay, your oxidative system sucks. So it's a pretty solid test for those reasons. But what tips do you guys have for this one?
First, I'll just have some clarity things just for extra details. For the 10 out of 11 score, you're only as strong as your weakest arm.
Correct.
You get that a lot. Max meters, it's run. It's intentionally run. I know a lot of people ask to do row or bike. Those are okay as long as you're keeping consistent, but it's designed for run. And alternating on kettlebell snatches means you're setting it on the ground. You're not switching hands, which that would probably be more awkward and be harder anyway. But just to not to try and game or cheat things, and definitely safety on that one as well. The thrusters will also, when you start time, I believe it also starts on the ground, and then you clean it to your thruster. But yeah, everything you do is 100%. That's about it. I don't really have much after that. I just wanted to clarify some things.
You're not supposed to squat on the snatch, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just overhead, basically from continuous movement from the ground to overhead.
Yeah. The only other thing is just watch your form. I mean, you're testing yourself, so you're probably going to try to go fast, but I mean, you don't want to. A snatch is pretty technical. It's a little less technical, I guess, with the kettlebell, but at the same time, you don't want to do something 45 times in the wrong movement pattern at breakneck speed. So that'd be my only tips, is just watch your movement.
Yeah. So the run is max meters. That means as far as you possibly can. So don't sandbag it. You're trying to go hard. You're trying to go far. 6 minutes goes by faster than you think. So just suck it up and go through it. Don't sandbag it. Also, stick to rule number 1, which is, how is it worded? Don't be stronger than the amount of weight you have. Basically, I'm saying if you do the first part of the test and you're doing 12 reps with your heaviest kettlebell, it's 10, not 11. You're supposed to hit 10 reps. So go get a heavier kettlebell and then come back and do the workout. Like if your heaviest kettlebell, you can do more than 10 reps with it, you need to go get another kettlebell, a heavier one. So hold off on the workout, get a heavier kettlebell, come back and try it again. That's what I would say.
If only somebody had their flag hung up.
I know, right?
It's still laying there where it fell. I'm joking. I actually hung it up in the gym finally, and that's why it's not behind me. It's own more weight than you can lift.
Own more weight than you can lift. There you go.
All right. So my tips for this one, you might be thinking, so the 10 out of 11 strength test, obviously that sets the tone for the rest of the workout, right? And so if you wanted to sandbag this, you could just like have use a lighter kettlebell, and then you could crush all the rest of the kettlebell tests. But then you are incapable of scoring max. So the max is 2 pood, which is 72 pounds on the kettlebell. Kettlebells used to be reported in pood. I think that's like really like done away with now. I think everything's just pounds. So anyway, 72 pounds on the kettlebell is the max. I didn't mention the max on that one. So that's what you would be shooting for. And then if you go down from there, like, if you get stuck in between kettlebells, just do the heaviest that you can, right? Like if you're like, well, I have a 50 and I have a 70 and I really feel like I should be at the 60, it's okay just to go down and do the best that you can, kind of like what Trampas said, like, let's try and keep the best form that we possibly can. And then, see what you can do and see how much you can max out still with that. And I'll be honest, my most hated test on the planet, number 1, 2,000 meter row for time. Hate it. Scared of it. Second one is the O3 fit test. And it's mainly because of those max meters in 6 minutes. And more importantly, the 3-minute kettlebell snatch test. So I go hard when I do this test because I really want to see if I can max it out. And the max meters in 6 minutes is never really fun. And then resting and then doing the 3-minute kettlebell snatch test. That one's really difficult. Just to get the max score, which is always what I'm shooting for. That's 60. It's very, very hard. You get glycolytic really fast and you have to keep pushing it. So it's very challenging overall. As Kyle said, don't sandbag it. Try hard on all of these. And that 10 out of 11 strength test is just something very important to pay attention to because it kind of locks you in. It like locks in. It's like a safety parameter for what you should be using for the rest of the workout. So don't try and go up and be dumb or something like that. Just lock in your weight and then continue on. But that's all I have. All right. We'll get out of here. For all of the athletes who are currently following our training, thank you so much for following the training, staying consistent, and, doing all the things. And we challenge all the people who are following our programming, part of the community. Joe and I both did it. Just go out there, try and get someone else involved in your training. You don't have to get them to sign up for Garage Gym Athlete. We'd obviously love that, but get them involved somehow, doing the workout, doing something, be that person, be the light in your community. For anyone who's not a part of the training, you can go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial. We would love to have you. But that's it for this week. And your reminder, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.